we'll be writing queries in this video. Some of the SQL statement and clauses that you should know before writing any query in Django QuerySet API to query data from the database management system. Before we write any query, let's look at this domain, the retail store domain. So as we can see, we got 4 entities. We have members, we have sales, we have the product that represents all data relating to a table product, but we also have the table name department. We will demonstrate our queries or SQL statements using this domain, the retail store domains. The goal is to model business processes, business constraints, and some of the business requirements with these entities to solve the problem. Okay, the first SQL statement is the famous select from. The select from is considered the most used SQL statement. It facilitates for user to retrieve existing data from the database management system. So for the select, we will demonstrate how to use a select statement in SQL using Postgres database management system. And then we'll go ahead also demonstrate how to use a select in Django QuerySet Object API. As we can see for this instance, the requirement is to list all members from the table members. So before we get started, we need to make sure that we are aware of the database management system we are using. So we'll be demonstrating some of the SQL queries and the queries on the Django QuerySet API using Postgres as the database management system. As you can see in the database configuration, we do have the defaults that points to the SQLite, and we also have the alias cells that is currently pointing to local machine and using Postgres as the connector. So let's get started. Now we need to query all members from the table member, from cells, models, imports, members. We do have members, objects. If we call all, gonna throw an error. Why it's throwing an error? Because just calling all, we assume that we'll be using the default connection, and the Django QuerySet API cannot find the table members in our default connection. Let's clear that. Now, if we try member objects with the interface using, we pass the alias name sales, and we query all data from sales, and there we go. We got all data from members. To make it look pretty, we can also create a variable called members for members in members print member. And that's the list of all the members we do have in table members. Now, to select all the members from table members in SQL, we can simply issue the select statement, select all from members. It's very simple. We got all our members from the table members. Next, we look at the order by clause. For the order by clause, we will list all the cells ordered by the most recent cells. How do we do that in SQL, but also in Django QuerySet API? Demonstrate that in SQL, we can just issue the select statement, select date, products, members, department from cells, order by dates descended. There we go. You can see we have the 18 April, which is the last record, following by the 11th. How do you do that in Django framework? So let's clear. We are dealing with cell, so we need to import cell. Make sure we do have cells. Cell is now defined. From cells up in model, import cells objects using cells order by minus date. We have order by minus date. And that's the way we can query the data in QuerySet API in Django framework. Why don't we create a helper that will kind of like a format all the results for us? We can name that format results, which takes in QuerySet or objects in QuerySet print objects. We got our helper. If you write the query again, and name that cell order by now format results takes the cells, and there we go. Okay, that's the way we can query the database using the QuerySet API in Django REST framework, as compared to using plain SQL in Postgres. Next, we look at the EndAll operator in SQL. Okay, for the end and the all operators, we got a requirement. We need to list all members whose names start with Z or T. As you can see the results, we got a member named Tandokulu, and we do have another member named So. So let's go demonstrate that how we can query that using SQL and also using the QuerySet API in Django framework. Okay, we need to query all the members whose name starts with T or Z. To do that, we need to select all from members where name like. We introduce a new close name like, and then we pass the wildcard percentage, and we proceed that with the character we are looking for. Starts with T, or now we have a new operator all name like start with Z. Select all from, forget from members, and that's the result we're expecting. We got Solani and Tandokulu. Let's look at the Django QuerySet, how we can retain all the members whose name starts with T or Z. To do that, we need to make sure that we do have the table members. We have the amount of members. We can also create a variable called db cells, and we name it the alias cells. Now, before we use the OR operator in Django QuerySet API, we need to make sure that we import the Q objects, which allow the QuerySet object to filter the one QuerySet results with the operator OR. We need to import from Django DB models, import our famous Q objects. Now we can issue our query with filter. So, members objects using db cell, which is our alias filter. Now we need to filter passing the Q objects. Name starts with T, or now the Q object we call the Q object. Name starts with Z. Of course, we need to close that. There we go. And call our format results, and member with E or Z. Close that. Format results, member with T or Z. We got Solani, Tandokulu. And that's the way we can use the operator or the Django QuerySet API. Bear in mind, when you're using the operator and you don't need the object Q, since filtering with comma will imply that you're using the AND operator in a return query set. Okay, for this instance, we are asked to list all the cells this year to date, which is from January to this current month. Let's see how we can query this requirement listing all the cell this year to date. Okay, to do that in SQL, we need to select all, or we can select the dates. If you are not sure about the field we're dealing with, we can describe the table, cells. See, we have the field departments, members, products, and date. Let's clear that. Select dates, products, members, departments from cell, where we extract the month from dates, from our current dates, and our current dates is less than equal. We also extract the month from the current date. That's the way we select all the cells from January this year dates. Okay, let's demonstrate that how we can use the Django QuerySet to select all the cells from January to this month. To do that, we are back here in Django Interactive Python. We can clear. Let's check we have the model cells loaded. Yes, we do. Clear again. Cells objects using db cells as an alias. Now we filter the dates is less than the current dates. We don't have the current dates, so what we need to do, we need to import the objects time zone from Django util import time zone, and or we can from Django util time zone import now, and we can call today equal to we call now, and we get today. Now let's issue our query 6. We do have now the today date. We have cell objects using db cell filter dates less than equal to today. And the dates and our dates year and our dates year should be equal to our current year. So which should be the today dot year. There we go. Cells year to date. We use our format result cell year to date. There we go. And we can see Zolani purchased laptop on April 7. We have Tandokulu purchased a mouse on April 8. And Tandokulu again purchased a laptop on April 11. That's the way we can use the less than or equal to with filtering in Django QuerySet API. As you can see, we have the less than equal, and we also have the evaluation. Make sure that the year of our dates is equal to the current year of the current date. Now we need to look at those in and the not in. For this instance, we do have the requirements to list all cells with ID in a list with 2 elements. The ID should be 5 and 6. Let's look at the demo on SQL, how we can query the database using the in or the not in clause in our query. We need to select all cells with ID in a given list. Select all from cells where ID in 6, 5. There we go. We got all cells with ID 5 and ID 6. Now let's look at the way we can issue the same query in Django QuerySet API. Before we continue, we can just clear our screen. And by the way, the clear is now a built-in from Python. I just create that manually on this session. We are using the table cell. We need to make sure that the model cells is loaded. We do have that. So cells objects using the alias db cell. We need to filter ID in, and we pass in array 5 and 6. We call that cells. We can format the result. Format results cells, and we have Zolani purchased laptop on April 7 and Tandokulu as well. Now we need to talk about some aggregation. Aggregation in the relational database management system consists of grouping a results or a result set from database using some built-in functions such as maximum, average, or simply by counting the results, the record sets from the query set. So some aggregation, we be looking at the max function, the counts function. We do not have an instance where we use the average, but these are some aggregate functions you may encounter in SQL. A lot of them. We have the absolute value function, we have the tangent, the the code tangent, the sign or function, but we'll only look at the max counts for this demonstration. And as a requirement, we need to get the most expensive item in terms of products. We also, how many members of ours live in Austin. So we're expecting the result to be 900 as the most expensive product, and we need the result to be 2 member in table member use that lives in Austin. As always, we start with the SQL. We need to get the most expensive products in table products. So select, we immediately call function max. Select max price as most expensive item from products. Very simple. And the result is $900. We can select all from products to verify, and we have the most expensive product is a monitor. Unfortunately, a monitor should not be that expensive more than laptop, but something, So that confirms that we get the most expensive item in our table product. Let's see how we can issue the same query using QuerySet in Django framework. As always, we need to clear make sure we have the table products load, products undefined, from cells model imports products. Now we do have products objects using db cells, aggregate max, and we do not have the max function. It should throw the error. Max is undefined. We need to import max function from Django db model imports max. Django db model, we got max is defined. Now we can issue our query products objects using db cell aggregate max price. There we go. That's the most expensive item in table products. If we want to customize the label max price, we can pass products dot objects dot using db aggregate most expensive item max price, and we can customize our aggregation item this way. Now for the counts aggregation, we can select counts as members from Austin, select that from members where city equal Austin, and we'll return, and then we get the 2 members who are currently living in Austin. We can verify that by selecting all from members, and we see we have Zolani and Peter. They both now live in Austin, Texas. So clear the screen. So if we're gonna issue the same query in QuerySet API, we will make sure we have the member table loads, member table exists, member objects as a default manager using the connection db cell. We filter city equal Austin, and we can count them. We have 2 members from Austin. If we need a label with annotation, use member objects using db cell, filter, annotate members from Austin equal count. Now we don't have counts. We need to make sure we import count. We count city, and we filter city equal Austin. Count is undefined from Django db model imports count. Clear issue. Now we have Peter and Zolani who currently live in Austin. That's for some aggregation we may cover. We cover the max and the count. In the next one, we will talk about the inner join, how to use inner join in SQL, but also in Django QuerySet API. For this particular clause, we will look at how we can query more than one table by joining them with their respective equivalents of fields. Mostly we do use the ID. So we look at the way we can apply inner join in SQL, as well as the QuerySet API in Django Web Framework. For evenclose, we need to select the requirements which states how much cost the most expensive item we sold on April of this year. So which was the most expensive item sold on April of this year? So that's the requirements that we'll be using to query data both on SQL and the QuerySet in Django Web Framework. So we start with SQL, select the max P price as most expensive item from products as P or products P in a join, introduce in a join cell on cell products equal to PID, which is products table, where we extract month from each date. The month should be for April, and or we can just use the month should be 4, and we extract also the year from current dates, which should be 22. Well, I think this query is now, as programmatically scalable as we can imagine, because we are passing the little value on to compare the current month with 4 and the year also to be 22. But that's the way we need to issue the query from SQL first before writing the QuerySet in Django Web Framework. Let's go look at that in Django Web Framework so we can see how we can write that in QuerySet. So the equivalent QuerySet for the SQL statement we just wrote will be, we need to go on cell, make sure that we have the cell model loaded. We also have the products. We do. So we create a join between cell and products. To do that, cell objects, we need to define the alias, the database alias for the connection. DB cell select related, which join the products to cell. So the select related join the field products to the products that will be subsequently querying from, and we aggregate, we define the label we need to display expensive item equal maximum of products price. Select related is now, there is no select related. We need to make sure select is well written. Before we continue, we also need to import from Django DB models, import max counts as well. Let's clear our screen. Go back to the statements, to the query. There we go. That's the most expensive item that we sold on April of this year. That's the way we can use join in QuerySet. In QuerySet API. Next, we'll look at the way we can group by, both in SQL and Django QuerySet API. So, group by close. For group by close, we are asked to get the total amount sold per product. As you can see on the results, we have from the table cell, we create a join between cell and products. We are listing how many did we sell per item and what was the total amounts we sold for that particular item. We have laptop, we sold 2, and the total amounts brought in was 850, and we have the mouse, we sold also 2, and the total was 420. Let's go ahead and write some SQL query as well as the QuerySet API in Django Web Framework. Okay, we start with SQL. So select P name as products. We count how many products we sold. As number of item, we get the total amount sold, the total amount for that cell. We get P price as total amount from products in a join cell as S on cell products equal to PID, and then we group them, group by P name. So from products, the P is not defined, we need to pass P. There we go. So we got product laptop 2 was sold, total amount was 850.50. We have the mouse 2 was sold, total amount was 420. Now let's go on the Django QuerySet to demonstrate how we can query the same SQL statement using the QuerySet API. Okay, we wanna retrieve the total amount we sold per product in Django. So to do that with the QuerySet, we need to make sure the cell table, the cell model is loaded. We do have the cell model. Since the cell model automatically is referencing the products, we don't need products, but we got cells objects using db cell, which is the alias, the connection alias. We select related, which make a join between cells and products. Now we need to group by, we can group by letter, or we can define which field we need to group by product name. Now for each product where the product field in the table cells is joined, as we can see, for each product where the cell product ID is equal to the product ID from product table, we want to count them. How many do we have in the cell? So to do that, we use annotate in Django cell objects using db connection. Select related products, group by products name, annotate each product. We count them with number of item. We count products, and we annotate the total amount, which gonna be the sum of products price. Yeah, we need to close that, and that's the result. So cell using DB alias, we select related, which join table cells to products with products. We group by product name, and then for each group of product name we annotate them. We count how many we have, we count them, and we also annotate by getting the sum of each group. For pretty prints, we can results. Before we do, we can pass the results. Let's name that cells, format results cells, and that's our expected results. So we get the same results. We select from products, we count them, we aggregate, we count and sum to get the amount. So we select from table cells, we create say inner join, we join table cell with products, departments, we group by department name, we annotate, which apply aggregation, we count per department the product price, and we apply the evenclose, which is the where close filter by total items sold greater than equal 700, and last but not least, we get the number of products sold. We can format the results by before we format the results, we need to pass the results. We pass the results as a variable results, and we format results. There we go. We got a department name IT, total items sold, the total amount was 845, and the number of products sold was 3. So we need to correct the label for total items sold to be total amount sold. Total amount sold. Let's recap again. So we select from table cell, we create a join to products and departments where the department ID or the product ID is equal to these related field in table cells. We group by department name. Next, we apply aggregation by creating the sum of the product price in cell, and we apply the eving using filter. We filter where the total amount sold is greater than 700, and last but not least, we annotate to get the number of products we sold. Format results, and that's our results. Okay, next. For the width as close, we will retain all members currently residents of Austin. Members that are currently residing in Austin. Let's go ahead and demonstrate that. The width label as is a SQL query that's temporarily store the query results within a transaction, so you can kind of like subsequently issue another query from the results of your label. For instance, to demonstrate that, let's say we have with select members as we pass our brackets, select all from members. At this point we cannot pass the semicolon because we have a temporary query. Now we have to complete this query by transaction query by selecting from the temporary query results. Select all from select members. It should be member, but yeah, he gets what I'm talking about. Where city equal Austin. Okay, so we can do something like with select members as select all from members, and we can complete our transaction query by selecting from select members, where ID, where city equal Austin. Select all from members. Okay, select all from members. There we go. Okay, that's the with as close, which allows a developer to temporarily save the results of a query in a transactional query. Okay, let's demonstrate how we can use the with as in the Django QuerySet API. The Django QuerySet API introduced the alias interface, which allow you to temporarily save the results of a query in a transactional query set and or issue another query from the temporary results. To do that, we have our member object using DB cell. We filter DB cell alias. We name the alias members living in Austin and members living in Austin. We can count city and we filter city equal Austin, and that's our results. We can name the results member and format the results members. So we got Zolani and Peter, they both live in Austin, and we've used the alias to temporarily the alias is sort of like the annotates, but it's also temporarily gets your results, so you can subsequently issue another query from the previous query. Okay, for the updates, we need to update Peter email, which is pretty simple. Okay, to update Peter email. It's simple. Okay. We update members, set email equal new Peter email at gmail.com, where ID equal 3. It updates. We can select all from member to confirm that we've updated Peter email. Select all from member. As we can see, new Peter email address. Pretty simple. To demonstrate that on the query set, we need the member model. We do have the member model, members, objects. Using DB cell, we filter first because you can only apply updates in Django QuerySet by getting first, because you need to rotate a query set to update. Filter ID equal 3, which is the Peter ID, and we update email equal email updates Peter at gmail.com, and that's our updates. We update one record. We return Peter. Okay, the next one we got inserts. Insert is pretty simple. I think that's where everybody started. I wouldn't demonstrate how you can insert, but we are asked to add Muller as a new member in table members. So let's just go ahead and demonstrate that and see. Okay, we need to insert. Before we insert, let's see what we do have in members table. Select all from members. We have Peter, we have Zoe, Tandokulu, and Zolani. So let's insert into members, the value, the ID. Since our ID is automatic, we can pass a little value, or we can let it increment automatically. We can also check the member, see how member is, the definition of member is defined. We have the ID integer, which is generated by default as an ID. We have the name, account number, email, city, address. So insert into members. The value, the first one is default. We got Muller, account number 8470, email John Muller at yahoo.com, city unknown, and the address, let's just say 44 Control Avenue. We successfully insert a new record. We can select from members, select all from members, and we got Muller with the new ID 6. To do that in Django, we will demonstrate that, but we can see how we can insert a new record. We have members load, members objects using DB cell. We create the name of member will be, before we create, let's delete get ID 6. We delete one member. Now we have to create name John account number 8750. Email address, we have johnmuller@gmail.com. The city is unknown and the address is 45 Control Avenue, city. Okay, that's the way we can create. Pretty simple. We create header first in QuerySet API. Should receive a dictionary or should receive a keyword argument, which is a list of key pair value, and that's simply how we can create a new object in Django using the QuerySet API. Okay, this is my last observation, if not recommendation. Before your first query set, basically you shouldn't do that before your first query set, but as a recommendation, you need to start small with limited data. You need SQL knowledge. If you don't know SQL, it will be pretty difficult, as you might try to write some query in QuerySet without having the knowledge of SQL, and then there will be some discrepancy and some false positives. So configure your DBMS to detect slow queries. If you can't get it right on Django, write SQL first. It's also recommended to use the explain statement to compare queries performance. If you're having a slow query set in Django, you can write different queries in SQL, compare them, which one is faster, and then translate the SQL queries to Django QuerySet. And last, you can also write queries that utilize resources on your RDBMS than Django. By that I mean you don't have always to write a table, or you can create a view in your database management system and then use that view in Django, whether it's an updatable view, which means a view that can be read and write, or the generic view that can only be read. These are some of the recommendations, as far as why you should know SQL before writing a query set in Django REST framework. And this concludes this video. Thank you for sticking around, for watching up to this point, and I'll see you in my next video.